Calling the meeting to order, the June 10th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Wilmington Board of Appeals. It is now 7:06. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law under General Law 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: through WCTV Channel 9 on Comcast Xfinity, Channel 37 on Verizon Fios, and also on live stream at WCTV.org. This meeting of the Wilmington Board of Appeals is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID number 858-5613-0010. Then press the pound key and then press the pound key again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by following the steps previously noted, then press star 9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in queue in the order that they entered the prompt. In the event that, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide for real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. We have all members of the board present. I'm going to call the meeting agenda as follows. We have one matter, Princeton Development, which likely will take up the bulk of the time, I believe, this evening. So in order to accommodate the members of the applicants who are residents, I'm going to take them first, and then we're going to do Princeton at the end, so we can get those folks in and out. So the first matter on the docket is a continued matter. Case 720, it was continued from our May 2020 meeting. Jeff and Rhonda Rubin, map 36, parcel 27, and that's at 44 Fair Meadow Road, and they are seeking to acquire a special permit under 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure. Do we have the Rubins here, and are they unmuted and available?
Okay. Rhonda was here earlier, but I don't see them now.
Can I say that I don't have a plot plan? I have the other drawings, but I'm missing the plot plan.
So the plot plan came originally in the original.
Original filing. The original filing, Jackie, that was included.
Okay. Let me see.
All right. Well, why don't we do this? Since they don't appear to be here, Andrew, at this time, right?
Correct.
All right. So why don't we just we'll go down to the next matter on the agenda, and then Andrew, when you see that they're in here, just send me a chat. So then when we're finished with the next matter, we'll call them after.
Understood.
Okay. The next matter is case 820. Kevin Carpenito, map 78, parcel 38, 53 North Street. This was also continued from our May 2020 meeting, and he is seeking to acquire a special permit under 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure. Now, I will say that I believe part of the reason this matter was continued is because we needed to get a recommendation from the planning department, which we now have, and I'll just read it into the record and get it out there. The memorandum dated June 4th. At its meeting on June 2nd, 2020, the planning board voted to recommend as follows for this particular matter at 53 North Street. Upon duly made and seconded, it was unanimously voted that the board does not recommend granting or creating, strike that, a new nonconformity. So that's what the planning board had to say. So we have their recommendation. Do we have the Mr. Carpenito here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Carpenito. So you hear what the planning board had to say on it. Were you aware of that recommendation?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Well, do you want to add anything to what you presented last time before the board takes it up? They may have additional questions for you, but if you wanted to add anything or respond to what the planning board recommendation is, fire away.
So Dan, I'd love to share my screen. Can I do that? It won't be very long.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, is that something that can be done?
Yes, you should be able to.
Yep, go right ahead.
I just think if you see the property and what we're trying to propose, it might help a little bit and maybe answer some questions that people had last time. So just give me a sec. Can you see?
Yes.
All right, so this is my property and I'll go real fast. So this shelving here is basically where the addition will come to, okay? I wanted to show you that because as you can see, there is no existing house. We're not like building on top of another house. And just to go back to what we're proposing, a garage with a room above it for my elderly father. That was the whole idea. So some of the questions one of the things, the problem with doing something that was inside of the setback is underneath this porch here is a set of stairs right here coming from the back. That's the porch. This is my only way into my basement. This is about 4 feet wide. These would end up being in the garage, okay? On the plan, if we talked about last time, people asked, why can't you pull it forward? Why can't you pull it back? These were some of the suggestions. So we tinkered with it. And if we did pull it forward and maybe get it inside the setback, the garage would be pretty much unusable with these stairs that can't be moved. So coming forward probably didn't do anything. And in the back, right around here, is my septic. So this is a picture of my backyard. This is the septic cover, right where this orange bucket is. And this is where I leach out to. So really, this is all wetlands back here. I don't believe I can move the septic back there. And to be honest with you, to move it to the front of something is just like, we can't afford it. So this is a picture from across the street. This is Tom Doyle's house over here. You can see there is a lot of room. We are not building houses on top of houses. My property actually goes all the way to this driveway. But if you look at the plot plan from here, it kind of goes diagonal down. And that is pretty much why we don't have room. I believe if this went straight, this lot, I probably would have room. So just to give you a little visual of what was going on, anybody have any questions about the slides?
No, I don't have any questions on it.
Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you. I mean.
And let me just refresh my memory. Did your neighbor, you said there were the Doyles?
Yep.
Did they have any objection to what you're doing?
So the neighbor, Tom Doyle, wrote a letter that said he was in agreement. The Lana was standing across, who will be looking at this structure, wrote a letter, and the people on my other side also wrote a letter, all in agreement of the addition.
And you're not aware of, I mean, I'm gonna obviously open the public hearing, but are you aware of anybody or any abutters or anybody that has a problem with it?
I do not. I thought getting more than 3 letters, Dan, to be honest, would be like a little much. So I didn't get one from everybody in the neighborhood.
Okay, what I'm inclined to do now, before we go back to the board, because we've already heard from the board at the last meeting, we'll hear from them again. I will open up the public hearing and ask if there's anybody here who wishes to be heard on this matter before I kick it back to the board for further questions, comments, and any deliberation. Is there anybody?
Yeah, I believe we have one caller in the queue.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to unmute them now?
Yeah, unmute them and let me know when they're in so I can get them to give their name and their address.
Okay, they should be in.
Okay. Hi, can you please give us your name and your address?
Yes, definitely. My name is Tom Doyle. I live at 55 North Street.
Okay.
I am
Tom.
the abutting property.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to put for the record, I think this is, first of all, thanks for doing this virtually. This helps out the public. But I've spoken to Kevin on numerous occasions regarding the timing and the scope of everything. all the details on it, and I have no concerns, no reservations about this addition. And frankly, I think it'll actually look very nice cosmetically. So I have no concerns at all.
Okay. All right. Anybody else wish to be heard on this before I close the public hearing? Anybody else? Andrew waiting?
Nope, no more calls.
Okay, I'll just wait a moment. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna close the public hearing on this particular matter, and I'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion or questions of the applicant or any deliberation.
Actually, can I ask a question to Mr. Doyle since he is present, or so to speak?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so Mr. Doyle, just I haven't looked up anything on yourself or anything, but so how long have you lived at your house for?
I've lived at my house for a little over 8 years, and I have no plans on moving out.
Okay, thank you. You answered my second question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the board wish to comment or ask any questions of the applicant?
I'll comment on it. I think that my reaction to it and my feeling on it, I actually did watch the planning board meeting the other night where they kind of did actually discuss this for a little while. And a discussion that they had that I have a hard time
You keep breaking up.
creating another conformity on the left side of the house is a half a foot, and that's unfortunate, but it's a half a foot, and I have a hard time creating such a large nonconformity on the right side of the house. And I think that if the applicant came in and stairs to basements can be relocated, septic systems very expensive, bulkheads can be added anywhere on a foundation pretty inexpensively. So I have a hard time approving this nonconformity, in the way it's being presented right now. So I agree with the planning board.
All right, you broke up, but I think your last sentence was you agree with the planning board?
Yes.
Tony? Yeah, your audio really is not, there's some connection problem there, so I didn't hear what your last sentence
Yes.
was. Okay,
I
now you're frozen entirely.
agree with the planning board.
Okay, got it. Anybody else on the board wish to be heard on this matter or have any question of the applicant? No one?
I'll say that I understand where the planning board's coming from, and I've seen worse from builders asking for so little, that, similar situations, and I don't usually go this route, and I don't want to make precedent, but I would say that I'm in favor. I would approve it.
Okay. Any other member of the board wish to be heard, or does anyone care to make a motion on this matter?
And I'm in favor. I don't see any problem with it. We're all here supposed to help each other. 85-year-old. It's hard making a living, and they like to move in with their kids. I have no problem with it, so I'll vote in favor of it.
Okay. Anybody else want to be heard, or does anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Dan, that we approve Assessors map 78, parcel 38, 53 North Street, for a special permit to add on the addition. I don't see, I see it on my thing, but I don't see it on on the zoning bylaw 6164. The addition as stated by LJR Engineering on the date that he is submitted and stamped.
It being no more detrimental to the neighborhood, do you want that to be part of your motion?
Yes, absolutely.
So we have that motion. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second,
We have a second from Ms. Santini. We need to do a roll call vote. So let's go down the list. Ms. Santini,
yes.
Mr. Barletta,
No,
Mr. Lepore,
Yes.
Mr. Syracuse, you with us?
Yes.
And then yes, I'm gonna vote yes myself. So we got it. So it's been approved, sir. Your request for the special permit has been approved.
Thank you very much. My father
All
will be
right.
thrilled.
Okay. Have a good night, sir. Good luck.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Now I've been informed by Andrew that that Miss Rubin is with us. Andrew, she's still with us?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you bring her up and I'll recall that case. It's case 720, map 36, parcel 2744 Fair Meadow Road. A continuation from our last meeting to acquire a special permit under 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure at 44 Fair Meadow Road. You with us, Ms. Rubin?
Yes, yeah, this is Jeff Rubin.
Oh, Jeff. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, we had technical difficulties earlier. I apologize.
No problem. No problem. Again, I believe this is a further case where we were waiting for the planning board's recommendation, which I'll read into the record now. At their June 2nd meeting, the planning board voted to recommend that under 44 Fair Meadow Road, case 720, that the board recommends that the setbacks be maximized and the structure be designed to blend into the neighborhood. The board recommends that additions to existing non-conforming structures do not increase the footprint by more than 50%. Now, I do note that you had sent us some amended, some drawings, I'd put it, design build drawings from CHD plans. I have them. I believe, does the board all have them now?
Yes.
Yes.
Got those.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't I start off, Mr. Rubin, by asking you if you want to
I don't have
add anything. You don't have them, Tony?
No, I never got them.
Is there a way they
The
can be?
email that they sent me didn't have the,
Okay. Is there a way that they can be displayed, Andrew? Can you put them up on the screen remotely, or can Kelly do it?
I believe Valerie said she had them. Valerie, do you have them?
This is for North Street.
No, 44 Fair Meadow.
Oh, Fair Meadow. Okay, yeah. Do you want the plot plan or the site plan?
We want the drawings that were submitted most recently since our last
So
meeting.
the site.
Kelly, I have them. I have them.
asked for the-
All right,
the elevation.
While we were in the-
everybody's talking at once. Tony, do you have them or not?
They came through while we were doing the last case, so I do have them now.
Okay, so everybody has them. So, Mr. Rubin, what I'm going to ask you to do is to add anything you want to from the last, since the last meeting. Then I'm going to open it up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board. Do you have anything you want to add to your application before the board?
No, we were just asked to provide the elevation plan and a rendering of what the addition would look like. And we provided that. And we also already have the septic that's already been approved by the town of Wilmington, but we did submit that electronically as well.
Okay,
So you should have that.
Valerie just put that up. Valerie, thank you so much. We now all have it available. So what I'm gonna do first, before I forget, is I'm gonna open this up, the public hearing, and ask if there's any member of the town or the audience that wishes to be heard on this application. Andrew, do we have anybody that's in queue?
We do not.
Okay, I'm just gonna wait just a few moments here. We still don't have anybody?
Nobody.
Okay, then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to close the public hearing on this. And then I'll bring it now back to the board for any members who has any further questions, comments, or wishes to make any type of motion relative to this application. Anybody?
Well, I have a comment. So you have the existing dwelling. So
Correct.
this house is on the corner. House being on the corner, I think it makes it a little more difficult. You have, if when you change that, you've got 19.2 on the existing, like the porch. So
The way the plot goes, it's a trapezoid. The further you get towards the addition, the more land there is between the house and the street. So it actually gets better conformed than what our current house is.
sure. So is there anything that you could do with the porch to kind of back that up on that? Is it-
On the current porch or the porch for the
Yes,
new,
the
the addition?
the current porch,
On our existing house?
right?
If it's existing and it's been here for the life of the house, well, I don't know why we would need to change it. Again, what we're doing is the addition is gonna be even more conforming as it goes the length.
True, I understand that, but you're asking us, yes, you're going that way and it's more conforming, but
I mean, currently it's a finished room.
oh, what, that little porch?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
it's a mud room that we use.
okay. So, I have a question. So when you, the septic tank under the deck,
Mhm.
is that being changed because you're,
Yes,
okay, so then you'll actually be, so that won't be 11.5, right?
no, it will be because it's gonna be moved. We're gonna be moving the septic. We're gonna be doing a whole new septic system, which the plan has already been approved by the town.
Yeah, on
which
the
you
other
should have-
side.
Which you should have electronically as well.
Right, no, I have that. So actually it won't be 11.5. It'll actually, it will be more room there is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes.
Okay, okay.
Anyone else?
I'll make a comment, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, just, I think my audio might be delayed a little bit. I appreciate the fact that the applicant submitted the elevation and the view of the front of the house. Had I not seen that, I probably would not be voting for it. I think it's done very well, and I think it's done well enough that I think I would be okay approving something that is larger than what the planning board recommendation is. And I think that the fact that it's pretty much within the line of the front of the house and not encroaching any further to Fair Meadow Street is another reason that I'm also in favor of it. So I think it's a well-done plan, and I actually think it looks really nice.
Okay. Anybody else care to make any comment?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it, Dan. I think where Valerie posted that picture and looking at the plan, I agree is what Tony just said. I think it's very well and a great improvement to the neighborhood, without a doubt.
Okay. Anyone else care to comment, or does anyone care to make a motion on this?
Actually, I want to make a comment. So basically, when you're looking at, I don't, maybe the third page in, you can see the old existing through the new building, and it looks substantially bigger. So is your addition going to be basically towering over towering over the older house, the existing house?
No, ma'am. No.
No, because the front picture looks, it looks lovely that way, but then when you look at the side view, that's what it is.
It's probably because there'll be the space between the breezeway and the addition to the house. That's probably why it looks that way.
Okay. Nice cupola.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. Okay, hold on. To approve case 7-20, 44 Meadow Road, to acquire a special permit 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure as no more detrimental to the neighborhood, as with the plans that were submitted, such as the plans submitted. I don't know if that's right.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. Lepore. We're going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Santini,
Aye.
Mr. Barletta,
Yes.
Mr. Lepore,
Yes.
Mr. Siracusa,
Yes.
and I'm going to vote yes myself. So it's been approved unanimously. Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, now, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'm going to skip Princeton just to get the other matters off the docket that are gonna take far less time, I suspect. So I'm gonna call case 1120, Lisa and James Ward Jr., map 1, parcel 10, 407 Chestnut Street, to acquire a special permit under 6.1.6.4 for a special permit to extend a non-conforming structure. Do we have either Mr. or Mrs. Ward present, Andrew?
Yes, they're both here.
Okay, why don't you call them on up?
Yep, they're good to go.
Okay, folks, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good, I'm doing fine. Why don't you let us know what you're looking for and how we might be of assistance to you?
So we want to put a family room on the back that is 20 by 25. And that addition will be in the setback that we have. It's just the existing structure is not conforming, but the new stuff will be. Front portico is really tiny and off-centered, and we just want to make it a little wider and another foot deeper. It'll look nicer and be a little more, and again, that new front porch portico will be within the conforming constraints. I think the one setback instead of, we're still within the new setback. That's
Okay.
pretty much.
And I'll just to get it onto the record, the planning board also has a recommendation on this case regarding 1124-7 Chestnut Street, map 1, parcel 11. At the June 2nd meeting, the planning board unanimously voted to recommend approval. The proposed rear addition and front entry meet zoning setback requirements and also do not appear to be more detrimental to the neighborhood. So we have a recommendation of approval from the planning board. Why don't I also now open the public hearing before we go back to the board and see if there's anybody who wishes to be heard on this particular application. Do we have anybody, Andrew?
Not yet.
All right, why don't we wait a moment? Still nobody?
Right, no callers.
Okay, so now I'm going to close the public hearing on this particular application, and I'm going to send it back to the board for questions, comments, deliberations, or any motion. So if anybody wishes to be heard, fire away. Anybody? This hardly ever happens.
So, all right, well, I guess I'm chatty Cathy tonight. So basically you're just asking to do the addition in the back. The garage is already there. You're
Correct.
changing the windows,
Correct.
which is not have anything to do with anything. And then you're also adding to the front, like porch.
Yeah, we're centering it wider and
Which
and
that-
deeper.
All right, which that shouldn't be really any issue. So it's,
Anybody else?
so can I just, so she's coming before us because of what, the setback on the side 12.7 of the existing?
Yeah, I was told that this is the 12 feet instead of the 25 in the back corner, and the frontage is 109 point something instead of 200. Non-conforming in those two areas, even though the new structure is going to be conforming. I was told they still had to go through this process, so that's why we're here.
I'm just curious, what's behind the garage? Is that a shed?
There is a shed, yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant special permit for case 1120 to extend a non-conforming structure as the proposed plans are no more detrimental to the neighborhood.
You froze.
I take it, Tony, that you made a motion to approve the special permit, the request being no more detrimental to the neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
A second.
Okay, I couldn't tell. I think it was a tie. So ladies first. Back,
Second.
right, you seconded. We'll go through a roll call vote. Ms. Santini,
Yes.
Mr. Barletta,
Yes.
Mr. Lepore,
Yes.
Mr. Siracusa,
Yes.
and I'm voting yes myself. So it's been approved unanimously. Good luck, folks.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the last remaining matter other than Princeton is case 1220, Mr. Robert Whipwire, map 19, parcel 18, 5 Bailey Road, and he is seeking to acquire a variance for an insufficient setback of 10 feet, where 20 feet is required to install an above-ground pool. Do we have you here, Mr. Whipwire?
He's here.
He is here, okay? I don't see his name, so
I think it's listed as Andrea. I can change that.
I'm using my wife's account. My
Oh, there you
Zoom
go.
account.
There you are. Nice to see you, Mr. Wickwire. Why don't you tell the board what you're looking for?
So if you look at the plot plan, you can see the only place on my lot where I could put a pool and be conforming with the 20 feet required would be in the front of my lot. Unfortunately, when you attempt to acquire a permit for a pool, it says on there that you need to be 10 feet from your leach field. And basically, that's where my leach field is, in the front of the house. So the only other logical place I could put a pool was on the side. The abutting property on that side is owned by the town of Wilmington. It's an empty lot. It's wooded. The existing house on the other side of that lot would be 130 feet from my pool. So
Okay. I assume that you probably have been informed about the standards that you have to meet to get a variance, right? You have
As
to
far-
show, yeah, you have to show a hardship. And just to give you a brief little outlook on the way that this board handles it, and I think most boards handle it the same way. It's a lot harder to get a variance than a special permit. It's one of those things that you basically are looking for us to excuse you from the rules because of the hardship that you're suffering, and hardship being, usually having something to do with the land, soil conditions, shape of your lot, something that you really can't help. You're stuck with it. So variances are rarely granted. It's one of the harder standards that we have to deal with, and it's one of the more difficult applications we get because they're not routinely granted. So, I mean, so if you can articulate, I guess I'm giving you an opportunity to articulate what your hardship is, because I'll read into the record, like I did on the other cases. The planning board at their meeting on June 2nd on this matter, 1225 Bailey Road, map 19, parcel 18, unanimously voted that the applicant does not appear to have shown a hardship, which is the standard you need to do. So can you articulate what kind of hardship that you're suffering that would give you relief where a variance would be appropriate?
So other than the fact that, there's a pandemic and I never know when I'll go to the beach again, and my wife and I are taking care of my recently widowed 91-year-old, her mother, my wife's mother. We can't expose ourselves to anything. We're kind of confined to our home and to the store. That's about it. And taking care of her. So, we have no means of recreation. So if that qualifies as a hardship, then that's definitely why we're looking at putting in a pool. We have no means for recreation. My wife has a torn tendon in her ankle. That's been a constant thing, and she's supposed to do aquasides for that. We can't go to a public pool. We're kind of confined. So this is really our only outlet, and like I said, I would put the pool in the front of my house where it would conform, except for it isn't in the bylaws, but when you go to do the permit for the pool, it says it right on the application for the permit that you need to be 10 feet from the leach field. So I can't help where the leach field is, and I don't think I can move the leach field either. So I'm kind of, constrained by that as well.
Well, I'm not going to discount that what you've indicated were hardships. I think everybody's going through a lot of unique hardships these days. The only problem is, the way I see it, is that the hardships you're mentioning are not the ones that have been set out by the law regarding the land, the shape of the land, the topography, the soil conditions, the shape of the lot. So, I mean, even though they're hardships, I don't think they're the kind that are recognized in the variance standard. But I'm only one person. I'll open it up to the board. I guess first I'll do what I did with the other matters. I'll open up to a public hearing, see if there's anyone present who wishes to be heard on this from the public. Can we do that, Andrew?
Yeah, we don't have anybody currently.
All right, why don't we just wait a moment, Mr. Wickwire, because sometimes people are struggling with the technology. They want to chime in. So, and I count myself as one of those people.
Fortunately or unfortunately, maybe,
Yeah.
my next door neighbor is the town of Wilmington, so they,
Yeah, I
they
get
won't
it.
be, I don't think they're gonna be calling on my behalf or,
So we still don't have anybody, Andrew?
Still nobody.
Okay, I'm going to then close the public hearing. I'll bring it back to the board to let the other members chime in and maybe ask you, Mr. Wickwire, any questions they may have or make any comments on your application. So anybody else here to be heard on this?
Yeah, Tom Syracuse here. I have a question. So your drawing is dated August 8, 2012. Did you, and it looks like your pool has been put in there. How did you get the pool layout in this drawing?
that was done by the surveyor. It's a 15 by 30 above ground pool oval.
So did he mark off the drawings or anything? Or what did he do?
I'm not sure I understand the question. He put the drawing of the pool where we proposed to put the pool.
Did he, but the last surveyor was 8/8/2012.
Correct. Yes, that's when we had this done.
You had the pool done?
No, no, we had the surveyor done.
Okay, so how did you get the pool on the drawing?
It's just a proposed pool. It's not a pool. It's not a pool yet, unless you approve this.
So are these drawing dimensions, how did you get these drawing dimensions? Did you just measure it by a tape measure? What did you do?
No, the surveyor did this drawing with the pool, where the proposed pool would be, based on a 15-foot wide, 30-foot long oval pool.
All right, well, I'm not following it anyway, but that's okay, go ahead.
I'd like to clarify if I can, but I'm not sure what else I can say to clarify that.
Well, if you have a surveyor who surveyed your property recently, he should date the drawing with the pool, with the proposed pool. And you're saying that the surveyor laid out the pool dimensions and your surveyor is 2012, so I'm not following it.
That's correct. So so our original plan was to do this pool back in 2012.
So
And
you're
due to
saying the original drawing in 2012 had a pool put in place there?
correct, we originally planned to do this back in 2012, but for financial reasons, we had to put that off. So, and at this point, it's like I said, it's push comes to shove. We can't leave our house. You know, we basically have nowhere for recreation except for in our own yard.
So we didn't have a pandemic in 2012.
No, that's why I'm saying that's why I'm
Okay.
doing this now.
Okay, thank you.
The pandemic has a lot to do with why I'm doing it now.
And if I could ask a question of you, I recall maybe a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, we had a case very similar to this, where somebody wanted an above-ground pool, and it was up against, I want to say it was an easement or a right-of-way. It was never going to be developed, and if I recall, it was approved, and there was some kind of unwritten rule or unwritten kind of thing that the board had, because it was an above-ground pool and not permanent, that have these been granted in the past because they're above-ground pools and not in-ground pools?
I have no memory of them making an exception for an above-ground pool. I don't. And was it a variance? Was the other matter you're thinking about a variance too?
It had to be, because it was the-
Yeah, you froze, Tony. We didn't hear anything you just said. You're still frozen.
the side yard was a right-of-way that was basically a dead end that could not be developed.
Mhm.
Still frozen?
Yeah, you're not. You're not working so hard. But I think I get your message. I don't remember. I don't have a memory of there being some type of above-ground pool exception because
Okay.
they're temporary in nature. I don't have a memory of that. This is maybe if Tony Larrabee were here, she'd remember it, but I don't have I can barely remember what happened last week. But I don't have a memory of that, no.
So to that point, the pool would, like I said, the pool would be next to an empty lot. So 10 feet from an empty lot of land that's fully wooded.
Dan, can I weigh in?
Of course, of course.
I look at the plan, Dan, and I'll be honest with you, the septic being in the front and the way his house is laid out in the pool, obviously I looked at it and would be very difficult to move that system to the rear. Meaning the setbacks and property lines, putting a leach field in to the rear. In this case, being what I'm seeing, 24 feet, very, very tough. Probably it's a 3-bedroom house. So definitely he has the hardship. I know it's not his fault or what we look at, you know, the septic system. However, I look at the pool, that it's not a permanent in-ground pool. It's basically above ground, which at any given time it could come down. And then I look at the lot line where the pool is being, it's 29 feet. Even if we was to put the pool in the rear, he's got an extra 5 feet. Granted, he's even got the town property, where in the back, he's only got 24 feet. So the way I look at it, it's not an overbearing, powering pool that's going in, and it is above ground, and any given time it can come down. So I'll be honest with you, I don't have a big problem with this.
Okay. So you're saying, Ray, you think that the septic situation is the hardship?
Yes, to be honest with you, it's kind of bony and rocky up in that area. So if he was to hit ledge or boulders in the rear, he's got no room to play if he even could move that system. So looking at the setbacks from the street, he's got 51 feet left or right. There's plenty of land that he could definitely accommodate a better system than he could put that system in the rear. It'd be very difficult and very costly.
But Ray, can I ask you a question on that? Even if you were able to put the septic in the back with a 17-foot to the back, I mean, that wouldn't fly, would it? I don't.
Yeah, you came in broken up. Can you just try it one more time?
Oh, I'm
Repeat.
sorry.
You get
So
locked
with
up.
the 17-foot setback, you wouldn't necessarily be able to put a septic back there anyways.
Correct. Yeah, it'd be very difficult to put a system in the back of that with 24 feet. You know the size of leach fields, and you understand, you know how leach fields are basically designed going by the bedroom. So he would have to have so many square feet, never mind even the setback. So it'd be very difficult to fit in three. I imagine that's a 3-bedroom house. So yeah, he would have some with the 5-foot overdig. It'd be difficult.
All right, I got another question. So why couldn't you put the pool off the deck? And then you would have, well, you might have 14 feet, I suppose. I guess that might not work either.
That's why I'm saying that 29 feet with the town-owned property to the right, he's got it in the best spot on this lot. There's no doubt about it. So, and it's it's not like a square and a long rectangle. It's an oval pool, so I don't see it really bearing, where he's got it. In fact, if he was to put it in the rear, who knows if you're encroaching the neighbors even more. I think privacy-wise for everybody, it's in the perfect spot.
All right, but on my comment on that, why can't you just get a smaller pool?
So outside of a little round rubber, maybe, so if you look at how much there's 29 feet there, you got to have some room between the house and the pool. And it just doesn't fly. I mean, I think even the smallest one, maybe 10 feet wide, still wouldn't be enough.
Could I ask one more question? Can you hear me right now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
If you went to Walmart and bought one of those 12-foot round inflatable pools, do you need a building permit for that?
Who you
What's-
ask? Who you
What's the
asking?
smallest size pool that you can get without a permit?
I'm asking, I guess maybe the question's to Kelly. If you go to Walmart and buy one of those 10-foot or 12-foot round inflatable pools, whatever those are, do you need a building permit to put that up?
You do. You still need a building permit. You still have to follow the setbacks, and you still need fencing
Okay,
for the temporary.
thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else?
What's the smallest size pool that you could get without a permit?
One without a filter. So a kiddie pool.
Right, right, yeah.
Those
Yeah.
those inflatable ones you have to, that has a filter?
It still has a filter. It's over 2 feet, so it's still a grounding issue, which
Oh, okay.
you need a permit. You need fencing.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion. Unfortunately, sir, I have to decline your case 12-20 to acquire a variance to install an above-ground pool. I don't see the hardship.
So Jackie, your motion is to deny
Yes,
request for the variance.
yes.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
We got a second from Mr. Siracusa. Let's go through the roll call. Ms. Santini?
No.
No, you mean aye.
Yes, I.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, just so the board knows that Ms. Santini has made a motion to deny it. So if you agree with Mrs. Santini, you will say aye. If you don't, you say no. So Ms. Santini is aye. Mr. Barletta?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Lepore?
No.
No. Mr. Siracusa?
Aye.
And then I'm gonna vote in the affirmative aye as well. So, sir, it's denied, 4-1.
Thank you for your time.
All right, good. Have a good night, sir. Thank you for coming in. Okay, that wraps up the agenda, other than the last remaining matter, which is the case 920, Princeton Development LLC, map 89, parcels 8, 9, 10, 13A and 13B. This is Middlesex Avenue and Jefferson Road. It's further continued from our May 2020 meeting, and they are seeking to acquire a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. And who do we have who's going to be running with the ball tonight?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Chabin, for the record with Princeton. Thank you for reconvening our hearing.
I apologize. Thank you for waiting till the end. I just wanted to get the matters that were going to be quicker out of the way first. So
I think a wise move, Mr. Chairman.
okay, so fire away.
No problem. Just so that everyone is aware, with me tonight is my business partner, Dan Endyke, our associate, Andrea Lathrop, our in-house counsel, Jeff Brown, our engineer, Joe Pesnola, who's the director of engineering from Hancock, and Jeff Dirk, who's a partner with Vanessa and Associates who did the traffic study. Mr. Chairman, my understanding this evening is that we would start off by hearing the peer reviews. Our suggestion would be to start with the traffic, secondarily then move to the water peer review. We then would move to some pictures that we have for you. The last time around, the board was concerned about how we would screen and landscape building A in the front with respect to the garage under. And so we provided some pictures there that we'll put up, and my partner Dan will take you through that. And then Jeff Brown, who's our in-house expert on the school-age children formula and how that works. Jeff will take you through that. And then we have provided responses to the town staff memorandum that was put together for the board. Very comprehensive and well done memorandum by the town, and Joe Pesnola from Hancock has provided those responses and can walk the board through that. The only other thing, Mr. Chairman, we thought we might be able to get to the civil engineering peer review this evening. Unfortunately, that was not received until later this afternoon, and so we've not had a chance to review that. So in discussing that with town staff, the thinking there is that we would take the time over the next few weeks, respond to that in writing, and be ready to do that as the first item on the next meeting, which I believe is on 2 weeks from this evening. So, Mr. Chairman, if that meets with your approval, I think the best place to start would be the traffic peer review engineer.
Yeah, I will say, I think I've got everything. I believe the board has been provided everything, but some of it had been of a recent vintage. So I'm not sure how many members of the board have had a chance to digest all this. So I think some of the stuff just came over, like you said, tonight, earlier today. Looks like something came in yesterday, and then the traffic one came in on Monday. So the board members may want to, chew on this for a little bit, but go ahead. Why don't you start off with the traffic one? We'll do that.
Understood. So if we could start with the town's traffic peer review engineer, and then Jeff Dirk, who is our traffic engineer, can respond thereafter.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Corinne Tobias, the traffic engineer with Green International Affiliates. We're hired by the town to peer review this project, and I'm just going to share my screen very quickly to go over a brief PowerPoint with everyone. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So just for a brief overview, we did review the traffic impact assessment that was prepared by Banassan Associates from May 4th, as well as the permit site plan prepared by Hancock from May 6th. And we have submitted a peer review memorandum from June 8th of this year, and go over some of the findings. So one of our comments is we would like to have the traffic engineer measure the impacts of the proposed development project. Right now, there's really just a quick generation, but there was no analysis of any adjacent streets or roadways. So we're asking for intersection capacity analysis at Middlesex Avenue and Jefferson Road, as well as Middlesex Avenue and High Street. Now, due to the restrictions on traffic counts for COVID, we understand that they won't be able to get counts for these intersections right now. However, have provided counts for Middlesex Avenue and High Street, which were conducted in 2018. And for Jefferson Road, it's currently a dead-end road where the existing uses should be relatively straightforward to estimate. So we'd like them to take a look at that intersection as well. And in addition to looking at the capacity analysis for those locations, we would like to see some additional safety analysis for the two intersections, as well as Middlesex Avenue between High Street and Federal Street. And specifically, we're looking for crash rates that are fairly standard in most traffic studies, but do require those traffic volumes to conduct. In addition to that, we performed a site visit ourselves as well, and we did note that there is a limitation of site distance for the Building A driveway, the proposed Building A driveway on Middlesex Avenue. In the study, it was stated to be measured at 305 feet. We found it to be 290 out in the field, which is below the recommended minimum. And it's due to the horizontal curvature on Middlesex Avenue here. And there's an existing guardrail as well, along with significant vegetation that may require either trimming or, if possible, to shift the driveway slightly to the south. In addition to that, we had a number of comments on the site plan. We would like to see turning templates, including for a school bus and a garbage delivery truck. And in addition, if there is going to be any school bus routes to the site, just identify the proposed location on the plan and show that the bus will be able to access that area safely, as well as pedestrians. In addition to that, for Building A, the parking garage, you'd like to see a little turnaround area at the end of the garage so that people can get in and out of these last spaces. These are the spaces furthest to the north here. You can see that in the surface lot, but it's not in the internal garage. And in addition, there are some spaces next to the pedestrian entrance to the garage that could be mistaken as parking spaces, but aren't aren't large enough for parking spaces. So we'd like to see patching in those locations as well to prevent cars from trying to park there. Finally, there was some discussion of converting the Building A southern access for the surface lot into a one-way. However, we have some concerns with that, namely that, into a one-way entrance so that people wouldn't be exiting onto the short link for Jefferson Road. However, we have some concerns that people who entered the parking lot from Middlesex Avenue and were traveling through and unable to find a spot wouldn't have a great place to turn around at that location. So rather than having it be a one-way entrance, we'd like to see a right in, right out, so that vehicles who did enter from Middlesex could at least turn right out and then go to the parking below Building A or over by Building B and have a larger space to turn around. In addition to that, we'd like to see a designated dumpster area for Building A. Right now, there's only one located on the plan for Building B. And a little bit further clarification on the snow removal. Right now, the snow storage is shown kind of behind the back of the curb and behind the sidewalk. So it's not clear how the snow is going to get to that space and whether or not it's sufficient for the parking areas, and whether they may need to remove the snow to an offsite location, in which case they should provide that information as well. And finally, I'd like to see some designated visitor parking spaces. In addition to that, we had some comments regarding pedestrian accessibility through the parking lot. Right now, there's no, if you're coming down Middlesex Avenue and you're traveling south as a pedestrian, there's no great entrance into the building through the surface parking lot. So I'd like to see a safer crossing there as indicated on these plans. And in addition to that, for Building B, if you're coming along from the MBTA facility, you're walking down the sidewalk, in order to get to the front of the building, there's currently no safe accessible path. So we'd like to see that be provided through the parking lot as well. And finally, some additional items. We'd like to see some proposed bike rack locations on the site plan. Consider accommodating electric vehicle charging stations within the garage, and also to see whether or not there would be interest in providing a transit subsidy for new residents, since the site is located adjacent to an MBTA commuter rail station, and could really take advantage of that and reduce reliance on private vehicles. And then there was one other item, and actually I'm just going to go back a little bit, where you can kind of see a little bit on this plan here. The exit for Jefferson Road is in very close proximity to the exit for the MBTA parking lot. So understanding that the developer doesn't necessarily have property rights there, whether there be any interest or conversation about potentially closing the garage, the entrance to the MBTA facility off Middlesex and only having access to Jefferson Road, just to limit the number of curb cuts in this area on Middlesex Avenue. And that is it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Dirk, who's our traffic engineer, I think might be instructive to the board to have Jeff respond to a few of those comments. And then after Jeff, Joe Pesnola might tackle some of the items like snow storage and the crosswalk and path from the T. So, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, we'll have Jeff Dirk go next.
Yo, that's fine. Go ahead, Mr. Dirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Jeffrey Dirk, a partner with Vanessa and Associates. We very much appreciate the comments that we received from Green. They're very informative and clearly spell out what we need to do. I think it's mostly, as you heard, and these are consistent with the comments from the board from the last hearing. We're going to do some more traffic analysis related to the project and specifically at the two intersections that Green had mentioned. Valerie has been great in giving us some historic traffic count information. So We received the town's transportation master plan, which has all of the traffic counts for a number of intersections in the town from 2018. So that's a very good resource for us, especially given the current conditions. We also provided a copy of the traffic studies, there was a traffic study and a technical memorandum done for the treatment center that is on the other side of the tracks from where this site is located. So our traffic study will include the traffic volumes from that project. Based on that analysis, it was a relatively minor traffic generator, but we will be including that. Also, most importantly, is we will be including the driveway to the country market that is opposite Jefferson Road in our traffic analysis. We will be performing updated traffic counts next week, and Green, as well as Mass DOT, has provided guidance to us on how to update any traffic counts that we conduct today, so we're able to appropriately adjust them to reflect prior conditions or pre-COVID conditions. So we'll be performing those adjustments and submitting them to Green for review as well. So we'll be conducting all of that. The traffic counts will be done next week. We will be preparing responses to each of the comments that Green had provided to us next week as well. So the expectation is, as you had mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to get everything to you well in advance of the next hearing so that both Green and the board have an opportunity to review that information. And then if there's any clarifying comments we need to address, we'll be able to do that in advance of the hearing so that all of the board members have that information prior to the next hearing.
When do you, and I don't mean to pigeonhole you here, but when do you anticipate we might have that information? Because our next meeting, I think, is 2 weeks from tonight.
So we're planning to conduct the traffic counts next Tuesday. I'm just pulling up a calendar here. So next Tuesday, the 16th. I plan on working on the responses next week prior to even getting the traffic counts in, so that we'll, my goal,
24th, Jeff.
Yeah, the 24th is the next hearing?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
I'd like to try, so my goal would be to try to get everything done and submitted to the town by Friday of next week.
That would give us, yeah, that would give us a good, let's see, like 5 days, right?
Yes.
That is something. Yeah. All right. I think that's workable. I think that's workable. I would just advise the board members to keep their eyes on their email. And if you utilize the town email, that's the way that I've been getting them. So you might want to just keep your eye on that over that weekend. So, okay. Thank you, Mr. Dirk.
Great. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just responding to a few of the comments from the developer side. Bike racks, yes. Vehicle charging stations in the garage, yes. We've been doing those at all of our new properties. That's sort of important these days. And using a discount or giving away passes to the T is certainly something that we will be doing as move-in incentives when we start leasing. So all three of those are good suggestions, and the answer to all three of those that were brought up are yes. And now I'd like to turn it over to Joe Pesnola. He can talk to you a little bit about the dumpsters, the snow storage, the crosswalk, and paths. Joe?
Certainly. Again, for the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. We had a chance to review the comments from Corinne and Green International, and appreciate that input. The pedestrian improvements are all very good ideas, and we will incorporate those into a set of revisions that we're working on that are incorporating comments that we've received to date, comments that we received yesterday and even today. And again, similar to Mr. Dirk, we'll get those revisions into the board by the end of next week, so that they can see those memorialized in the plans. But I don't have any issues, or will fully incorporate the pedestrian improvements that Corinne had mentioned in her presentation. I think they're all very good. With regard to dumpster for Building A, that we're going to internalize the trash for Building A, so there won't be a dumpster outside, and we'll provide some information on the configuration inside the garage for that, as well as incorporating some means for anyone that gets to the end of the garage that can't find a space. We'll have an area striped out for them to turn around to get out. As far as reconfiguration of the commuter lot, we have been working very closely with town staff on all aspects of this design, but we have had discussion with regards to the status of Jefferson Road and the fact that there's a desire by town public works to accept Jefferson Road once we improve it to that second entrance on Jefferson into the commuter lot, so that the town vehicles can use that to turn around. So when the plows come in, they will plow to that second entrance, and then they'll go into the commuter lot, plow the commuter lot, and then they'll come out onto Middlesex. I don't think it's possible, or at least in their vision, possible to close off that Middlesex Ave entrance. But it would be, we will work with Corinne and town staff to talk about maybe some signage and making maybe the commuter lot one way in from Jefferson and out onto Middlesex. But happy to continue to work with them on that. Snow storage, we'll take a second look at snow storage. We can provide a snow management plan, or the beginnings of a snow management plan, and that will include the provision that if the designated snow storage areas are not sufficient, if we get some major snowstorms, that there'll be provisions to remove the snow from the site. We understand and know that the Conservation Commission will likely have some prohibitions on certain areas that would make sense to put snow from the standpoint of a snowplow driver at 3 o'clock in the morning, but might not be the best idea for protection of the wetlands. So our snow storage areas have already taken that into consideration. They'll continue to take that into consideration, and we'll come up with a snow management plan that is adequate. Again, with a provision to remove snow from the site if we get to that point. I think that was it. With regards to the comments from Green that were applicable to the site layout and the site plan.
Mr. Chairman, we will, as Jeff Dirk mentioned, we will take the traffic counts, respond in writing, get those to you by next Friday. Joe will do the same with respect to updating the site plan, and those will be in at the same time. And hopefully at that time, those can be sent back out to Corinne, and hopefully we'll be able to wrap this particular portion of it up at the next hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. One of the other comments by Green had to do with visitor parking, and that's kind of a concern for me. If there are no visitor parking spots, you don't want people parking on Jefferson Road or overflowing into the municipal lot. Are there any accommodations for visitor parking?
Joe?
There aren't assigned spaces in Princeton's on Princeton sites. And the visitor parking is within the ratios that we're providing. So we believe that there's ample parking for the residents and their visitors that are contained within the parking that we're providing. As you'll hear shortly on the staff comments, they had some of your same concerns with regards to people parking in Jefferson and the commuter lot, and they've asked that we do a couple things. First is to provide signage in Jefferson that prohibits parking within Jefferson Road, and that we also provide signage that there's no parking for residents or visitors in the commuter lot. Additionally, they want us, and we're happy to assent to, providing language within the documentation that goes to tenants that reinforces that there's no resident or visitor parking in the commuter lot or on Jefferson. So every tenant that comes in will have that information right up front. and management will reinforce that through enforcement of the rules for the residents.
Joe,
Mr.
I'll echo
Barletta,
what you
also,
told- I'm sorry, Andrew.
go ahead, Dan.
We also will carve out half dozen spaces at the entrance of the property for when we have prospects come in that want to lease. So that's also incorporated into the existing number of spaces.
Mr. Barletta, we will, with all of our properties, we don't do assigned surface parking because it creates a management nightmare. But what we will do is give each of the residents who are there tags for their car. So they will identify that those cars belong there. If they have visitors, they can use one of the tags so that, somebody wants to park there overnight, they can. As Joe mentioned, we have more than enough parking, we believe, for the number of bedrooms that we have available. It's 50% ones. So with the ratio that we've provided, we feel we've got more than enough, and we'll control it through sticker or placard parking.
Thank you.
Sir, can I ask you, add on to that? So who gets the garage spaces, and how does that get worked out?
Great question. There will be an additional charge for the garage. So people who want covered parking will pay more for that. And so that sort of creates its own market, if you will. Everyone will get at least one parking placard for a one bedroom. They'll get two for a two bedroom. If they have two occupants in a one bedroom, we've taken into account what that will need. And if they need two placards, we will give that to them. And that's in our ratio of, I think, 1.7 spaces per unit for the property. So we should have more than enough. The garage spaces, I said, are an extra charge. And we will control everything, whether it's in the garage or on the surface parking with placards. So every car will be known to be a Princeton car. And if it doesn't have a placard, it'll be subject to towing. And the signage will so stipulate.
Actually, can I ask you a question? Because you just mentioned towing. So who's towing? Do you already have a company like on staff, or how does the towing work? Who do you call?
In each community, we have an agreement to allow them to come onto the property. And if we will call them, the towing company doesn't just wander around and look. If we, as the management company, see that there's a car that's been there for 2 nights or so and it doesn't really belong there, we'll check the registration, because they have to register the cars with us. If it doesn't have a placard and the registration doesn't match, when they lease, then that car will be removed after roughly 48 hours. We have a contract with a towing company in every community that we're in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, we ready to move on?
We are.
Okay. Next up, if we could hear from the town's water peer review consultant, and if there are any questions or anything, we can have Joe Pesnola, our civil engineer, answer those.
Andrew, are you talking about BSC?
No, we're talking about
Kleinfelder.
Kleinfelder.
Okay.
Yes. So I assume that Kelly, I assume that they are on the call?
He's getting unmuted.
Yeah,
I'll give him a second.
guys, somebody was muted. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Mike Sanders. I'm an engineer in the water team at Kleinfelder. I perform the peer review on this project, and I sent a memo to the board, to Valerie, earlier this week, yesterday. So thank you for having me. Our two main comments were that the proposed fire protection system, that the residual pressure was needed to be boosted, potentially by a fire pump or by using larger diameter pipes. That's something that the developer's fire protection engineer, I'm sure, will address during final design. And the other item is that we found that the development's domestic water, projected domestic water use, even during peak hour in 2030, does not significantly impact the fire protection to the neighboring developments and the neighboring homes and businesses. So those were our findings for fire protection and domestic water use. We had other minor comments on the layout of the water mains on the site that the developer has already responded to that they will address during final design. So that's a quick summary of our analysis. If there are any specific questions, I'm happy to address them.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Sanders' 2 points. The second one speaks for itself. There's enough water there, so that's good. The first one, Zaid Associates, who is our sprinkler design engineer, will take the information that was generated by Kleinfelder and will do an analysis, probably do a flow test at that hydrant. We'll submit the information back through Valerie to Mr. Sanders and make sure that they're comfortable. But ultimately, Zaid Associates knows that they need to make the sprinkler work, and so we have no issues or problems with the findings of the peer review consultant. Joe, anything that I missed there?
No, just to add that we had provided the assumptions for the requirements for the fire flow based on prior projects and getting a 4-story building serviced with sprinkler. They were very conservative, and we're confident that our Zaid Associates, our sprinkler engineers, can make this work.
Andrew, what do you suspect is the turnaround time to get whatever flow test and response to Kleinfelder back, so we'll have that information in total?
We are hoping to have it well before your next meeting and give you enough time to review it before the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any, does the board have any immediate questions on the water peer review? We're gonna go over it again, but does anybody have any questions? Okay, Andrew, carry on.
Okay, next up, I want to turn it over to Dan Endyke, who is going to address the issues that were brought up at the last meeting regarding how we landscape and how we screen at the front entry of the property. So Dan, you going to share your screen there?
Yeah, Andrea, if you can pull it up, that would be helpful to me. So I don't.
There we go.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew, and formally good evening to the board and Mr. Chairman. Andrew, why don't we scroll down? We did a initial rendering for this development that you're looking at. Full disclosure, the building that you see there is not the building that we're going to build. The footprint is about the same. However, this is a slab grade building. It's what we initially thought we could put on the site until we decided to use less of the upland area and acquiesce to some wetlands. So we have a garage under building, but the principles of the landscape buffering are, they remain in place. And I was happy, one of the comments that came from the town memo yesterday, I think it was paragraph number 18, suggested that we do some mature tree planting along Middlesex and into Jefferson. And that was always the intent. So we were seeing the project the same way there. And then as you look closer towards the building, the landscape principles remain the same. You'll see the mature trees a bit more spread out. They introduced some shrubs, and then there's also room for some seasonal flowers throughout the front of the building. So, we wanted to share kind of the historical pretty picture that we had drawn up. And then, as we talked about it internally, we kind of, whenever we present a rendering, it looks great, but it really captures or convinces, I think, most people. And so we said, what could we show the board that's a real product that's out there that we have in mind here. So we came up with a project that was built a couple years ago, and we'll move on to the next slide here. This project is known as Oak Row. It's in West Roxbury. It's on the VFW Parkway. It's sort of an anomaly in the neighborhood, but it fits in really nicely. This is a 4-story building. It's 80 units in total, so it's about 50% bigger than the 58-unit building we're proposing, but it's 4 stories with garage under. Again, the same principles as you see the front of the building. It has, the trees are a bit spread out in real life. The shrubs are there for the seasonal flowers. They also, and we found this intriguing, they incorporated some stone accents into the front just to kind of break it up. And so Joe and his team we'll follow up with that particular idea there. But on the next slide, you'll see the back of the building. And this was a specific request of the board was, I think it was Mr. Barletta who brought up, hey, what's this retaining wall going to look like? And this one may be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than what's going to come. But I think, and Joe, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels about right as far as what you will see aesthetically as you drive down Jefferson into and you come into the site, and the grade sort of slopes down to accommodate the entrance of the garage. The entrance of the garage is just to the right of the end of the screen here. And again, they bordered the retaining wall with some mature tree plantings, and then on top they have the ornamental shrubs, and it looks terrific. I'm not sure what the next slide is, Andrew, if you can go to that. Okay, this is the front, again, and it's an important one for the board to see. We felt it was important because this building is built essentially on top of the parkway. There's about 15 feet from the sidewalk to the building, whereas we have the benefit of setting it back with the parking lot and being able to buffer it, I think, a bit better than what it's buffered here. They do enjoy the very mature trees that for 100 years on the right of way. But wanted to share that with you. A very straightforward 80-unit 4-story building with garage under, and just have you guys see something that's just out there. That's while our architecture is a bit different and our landscaping will be different, you can see how imposing is the wrong word, but how it sits on this. Andrew, the next slide is okay. This is a separate property that we all found sort of interesting in the way in which they did this landscaping. It's another garage under multifamily building. It's known as Hancock Estates. It's very new. This was opened up about a year ago. And what they did that's interesting, and again, Joe and his team will consider this, is as the property sloped downward to accommodate the garage is behind the tree on the left. They built up kind of a berm, a mulch berm, so it slopes back down, and there's a little retaining wall on the other side of this hill. And they sort of hid the wall. And so we looked at that, and we found that to be a bit intriguing, and maybe something we can work in as well. But again, the general landscape principles are the same. You have the larger trees spread out by about 15, 20 feet, mixed in with the bushes, mixed in with the flowers. We'll do the exact same thing. So those were we wanted to share those with you. And as Joe, I'm sure the board hasn't had time to go through in detail the response letter that Joe had put together. But we will provide an updated landscape plan before the next hearing. That's part of our to-do list. We were wondering with this information provided to the board, if there was still, if the board felt that it was necessary, whether there was a condition within the letter that asked us to provide another rendering showing the front of Building A as it's on Middlesex and on Jefferson, and then showing how the retaining wall is in place. We can do that. We'd rather move forward if this information satisfies that requirement. So that's where we are with the landscape, and I'm happy to, and Joe and I and Andrew, we can answer any questions you have.
So I have, this is Tom Siracusa. I have a question regarding the Lovers Brook side of the building. What consideration in your landscape plan, what consideration you had to foliage on that side going into the brook, or something that would be impervious to that area where the brook is? Have you made any considerations and thought through that?
Nope.
Yes, on Building A, on the Lovers Brook side, we fully anticipate that those areas will be highly naturalized and really serve more as restoration of the riverfront. And those are details that we'll work out with the Conservation Commission to provide.
Would that be in your landscape plan? I'm sorry, would that be in your landscape plan?
The beginnings of that will be in the landscape plan, but that'll be subject to discussion and negotiations and input from the Conservation Commission. But yes, we don't see those areas as being highly manicured, highly formalized, more naturalized, and providing habitat enhancement, just protection of the river and those and that environment.
So we want to keep it natural for purposes of views and you know, I think
I understand. I understand you want it to look natural. I want it to be natural, and I would want to see that restoration plan as far as any type of landscaping plan before I would want to go along with that.
Okay. We can
No
do that.
problem. No problem.
Anybody else? Okay, Andrew, is that all you had for this evening?
We have two other items, Mr. Chairman. The next one will only take a minute or two. We've turned in at the request of town staff, we've turned in our memorandum regarding school-age children. And Jeff Brown can spend just a minute or two walking you through that. I think it speaks for itself, but Jeff, if you could.
Do we have that, Andrew?
It was turned into town staff.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Andrew and good evening, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Brown from Princeton Properties. Andrea, if you can pull up that memorandum for me, please. This is rather simple, as Andrew said. We've been developing properties for over 20 years, so the issue of school-age children impact on developments has been an issue we've faced many, many times. It's been an issue most developers have faced. So there are a number of studies out there, both national and local, that provide formulas that you can use input into making a projection of the number of school-age children. And I've listed the most popular, the most widely used formulas, and they come from a study by Rutgers in 2006 and another one by a group called CHAPA 2003 that primarily analyzed the number of bedrooms, the rental rates, and obviously the rental rates are affected by the affordability factor in Chapter 40B. These were, as you can see, 2006 and 2003 studies. In 2017, the Mass Area Planning Council did another study because they were noticing an anomaly that while there was a great increase in housing production, there wasn't a similar increase in the number of school-age children. And so through their study, they really identified three factors that were causing this inconsistency. The primary factor being residents of the town, older residents were aging in place, not moving out so their houses could be bought by younger couples. Overall, from population standpoint, younger couples were generally having fewer children. And finally, there was a great impact on the number of public school-age children caused by the charter schools becoming more popular, as well as private schools. And so each of these studies provide a series of formulas that you apply, and then the 2017 study applies another set of formulas that act as a kind of offset. So, Andrew, if you can flip to the very back page, please. So here are the critical factors for the formula. We have 43 one-bedrooms that will rent at approximately $2,300 per month. Of the 43 ones, we have 20% affordable. They'll rent at $908. 34 two-bedrooms, 59 affordable two-bedrooms. We have 9 three-bedroom apartments and affordable. So long story short, when you add in all these formulas, the town had asked me to make two projections. The first was how many total children would be on the property, and that, based on the formulas, would be about 26. And then the total number of projected public school age children would be about 15. The formulas break down into different age brackets, so it would be pretty evenly split between all the grades, with slight predominance to kindergarten through middle school age. So I can get into the minutia of the formulas if anyone cares, but that's the general analysis that's done using the primary formulas that are used widely across the state, across the country.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Chairman, any questions on that one?
I have no questions. Does any member of the board have any questions on that? No, doesn't sound like it, Andrew.
Okay. The last item on the agenda, I believe, for this evening, Mr. Chairman, is Hancock's response to the town staff's memorandum. I believe each member of the board has that document, or should have that document as well. I think Joe can sort of whip through that because much of it's been discussed here this evening. So I think if we take another 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman, he can probably go through those and see if the board members have any questions on that. But I think the town staff did a really thorough job in giving us their commentary, and I think Joe has provided the right answers. So with your approval, Mr. Chairman, we can turn it over to Joe.
Have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think predominantly the comments come from Valerie, the planner, the Paul Alnuni, the town engineer, and the fire chief. So they are grouped not basically by those three persons, but by categories. The first was in regards to the definitive subdivision. Again, as we explained in the first meeting, one of the parts of this application is to create the lot that is the development lot, and with the remainder lot being the office building lot that will be retained by the current landowner. So there were some comments on that, looking for more detail. And they're quoting the detail that's normally required in submission of a definitive subdivision. And what it would say to you is, from an engineering standpoint, we are only required to have preliminary plans, but we understand the need to review in detail what the proposal is for the improvements on Jefferson Road. So the plan revisions that we're working on will have that detail, have that engineering information for the town engineer to review. What we're holding off on is the formal subdivision plan that will be endorsed by this board at some point, post permit, but prior to the transfer of the land, for endorsement and recording at the registry of deeds. So that's where that lies. So I think that you can expect some additional commentary from the town engineer once they've had those additional details to take a look at. There was a call to maybe clarify some of the zoning compliance around the remainder lot, which was the office building lot. It's our assertion that that lot will be fully compliant and cannot take advantage of any relief granted within the comprehensive permit, and it needs to be a compliant lot. So we're going to add some information for review by town staff to confirm that that lot will be whole, lot will fully meet all of the zoning, from setbacks to area to parking ongoing. So that you can expect that in the revisions that'll be coming out next week, and further commentary by staff. The next issue had to do with the extension of Jefferson Road, what was originally called Truman Ave back in the 1950s when the original subdivision was done. It's shown on the assessor's maps as going way out into the wetlands. We've had extensive conversations with staff, with Valerie, with Paul, with council with regards to how to make sure that that's buttoned up. I think we've got a plan for that. That'll be incorporated into that plan that's endorsed by the board and recorded at the registry, ensuring that, again, the first 300 feet will be a public road. The next 120 feet will be private for access to building B, and that balance of the right of way will be extinguished upon the recording of the plan. And Jeff Brown's here to expand upon that if the board really wants to dive into that. But safe to say that we're working behind the scenes to make sure that that's right and ready. Again, the additional details that Paul is looking for on the with regards to the engineering aspects of the subdivision will be on those revised plans. There were the next section, if you will, is just the layout of plans with regards to some comments on the location of retaining walls and some details on the retaining walls to make sure that those are correct and right and ready, and we'll make those tweaks to the plans to make sure that's there. One thing that kind of dovetails into the landscape discussion is that staff has commented that they would like to see the Jefferson sidewalks butted up against the curb and put the green on the outside, which is going to allow us to incorporate those street trees into the landscape and really help to have that landscape serve both the experience as you're coming down Jefferson, but also to help soften the building and really have it kind of meld into the landscape. They're asking for, I think I mentioned this before, with regard to the parking, no parking in Jefferson, and some provisions for making sure that the residents aren't going to use the commuter lot. And we've memorialized what I said before with regards to information that goes to the tenants moving in with regard to that, and ongoing enforcement by management. They had questions on snow removal and a little bit of clarification that dovetails into Green International's comments. And as I said, we will provide additional information with regards to that. Emergency access, they're looking for maybe a secondary man door at the garage, and our architect is going to look into that in case somebody needed to get out without going through the overhead garage door. We'll follow up on that. And the fire chief noted that the maneuvering plan that we provided for the fire truck may have not used the exact vehicle that they want us to use, which is this E1 HP 100 aerial ladder truck. We will rerun that swept path analysis, that maneuvering plan with that vehicle, and prove to the chief that we can get him in and around everywhere he's got to get in and around. There were some comments on the architecture and the streetscape that Dan went over with regards to what we've provided, and we're looking for some input from the board on if that's sufficient, and also our commitment to provide an enhanced landscape plan. The next section is on landscape and lighting, and as I said, we will provide an updated landscape plan to show that additional detail, including some plant species and the naturalized areas along Lover's Brook, and the addition of some more street trees on Middlesex and Jefferson. There was a call for a more detailed photometric plan with light intensity levels. We've provided photometrics for our very preliminary photometrics for the plan, but there's a call to maybe expand that. We'd like to investigate whether or not the board would be comfortable with that, maybe being pushed over to the final plans. We really don't have any highly sensitive light receptors. We've got significant buffering with with the wetlands areas to the north and to the west. We've got the railroad and the commercial aspects to the left. Yes, it's important that we prove that we're providing both sufficient lighting detail for safety reasons and not too much to add to light pollution. But we think the issue is not maybe ripe for that level of detail at this time, and would look at that maybe being incorporated into the final plans as conditions. So we'd look for feedback from the board on that item.
Hey, Joe, can I interrupt you? On 21, just for the benefit of the board, our architect, we'll provide a cut sheet on the aesthetic of the post that we intend to put up. So we'll get that out in the next few days.
Yep. The next section, I really don't know if the board wants to get into it, but it's on utility and drainage. And safe to say, we have not only the town engineer's comments that we will address, but forthcoming, we'll have comments from your civil engineering peer review engineer BSC that we'll be doing. So we're going to behind the scenes be getting into the details with those people. And making sure that all of the utilities and drainage information is all right and ready, and hopefully we'll be able to report to you at the next meeting or a subsequent meeting that all of that has been addressed and resolved from there. We did mention within this memorandum that I provided, the Kleinfelder memo that we've already gone over. With regard to the water supply. So that's the balance of my letter. I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
I don't have any. Does any member of the board have any questions? Anyone?
No.
Okay. Andrew,
Mr. Chairman, I would think that, yep, the two things left to be done this evening are to just to give you the action items for the next meeting and then to ask you to continue the meeting to 6:24. We will get you in plenty of time for you to and the board members to read over things before the next meeting. The responses from Mr. Dirk, which he promised for the Friday before your next meeting. We'll have the response on the flow test with respect to the water peer review. We will have reviewed the letter that we received today from your civil engineering peer review and hopefully hear from them. And I think that will probably take center stage for the next meeting. And we will see if the responses from Joe and town staff, if we're all on the same page with those, or if there's anything left over, we will certainly update that list and give it to you. And then lastly, as Dan said, we will be submitting the lighting type. We've been directed by town staff to look at some of the downtown Wilmington lighting and some sort of the more classic style or colonial style lighting. We're going to be taking some pictures there, and we will get you a make, model number, color, and cut sheet well in advance of the next meeting. So I just want to make sure that that Valerie and Kelly don't think we've missed anything here, but that's the list, Mr. Chairman.
All right, what I would like to do, just to take care of our housekeeping matters, I had not obviously closed the public hearing. It's still ongoing. I will entertain if there's any member of the public that wishes to comment on what has transpired tonight. So Andrew, if you could check that out and see if there's anyone in queue that wishes to comment.
There is nobody.
All right, I'll wait a moment. And while I'm waiting, for the record as well, I'll read into the record, the planning board, of course, they just they're reserving comment until the plans are thoroughly reviewed and revised accordingly. And they plan on revisiting the recommendation at their July 7th meeting. That's what the planning board has. So let's get that in the record. And Andrew, no one has chimed in at all?
Still no one.
Okay, well, I'm going to obviously hold the public hearing open. I'm suspending it as of tonight, but we'll engage any public comment at our next meeting. So does that pretty much take care of what's on the agenda, Andrew, for this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think hopefully the deliverables that we outlined and what we're going to get you prior to 6/24, and hopefully we can start, making this more solidified after that next meeting.
Okay, and that next meeting, just for everyone's information, is going to be on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. So that's 2 weeks from this evening. Do any members of the board wish to have any further comment on the Princeton matter before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay. Before we do the motion to adjourn, Kelly, are there any housekeeping matters that need to be taken care of at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, does anyone care to make a motion to adjourn this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion from Ms. Santini. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have the second by Mr. Lepore. I'll take the roll call vote to adjourn. Ms. Santini,
Aye.
Mr. Lepore,
Aye.
Mr. Siracusa,
Aye.
Mr. Barletta,
Aye.
and then myself, aye. So we're going to be adjourned until our next meeting on June 24th. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight, and we'll see you at the next meeting.